You're listening to Yum Cha, a news podcast from Hong Kong Free Press, with me, Mercedes Hutton. This week, an invisible web of workers with Cynthia Cheng and Maxime Vanhollebeke. Hong Kong is often praised for its efficiency, but behind its clean streets, prompt public transport system, and 24-hour convenience are countless workers, often in low-paid jobs, who keep the city going. Through their social impact storytelling platform, Hong Kong Shifts, Cynthia and Maxime seek to celebrate these people whose contributions so often go unnoticed. At its heart, the project involves speaking to shift workers and telling their stories on Hong Kong Shift's social media accounts through photography and bilingual write-ups in English and Chinese.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Cheng, and I am one of the co-founders of Hong Kong Shifts, which is a social impact storytelling platform. So very happy to be here today.
Hi, and I'm Maxime. I'm also one of the co-founders of Hong Kong Shifts, and I'm very happy to be here today as well to talk about the project and why we are still going after 3 years.
So, Cynthia, you just mentioned that Hong Kong Shifts is a social impact storytelling platform. What exactly does that mean? And what can it achieve?
We call it a social impact storytelling platform. Well, storytelling is really at the core of everything that we do at Hong Kong Shifts. We started off with our community project, which is collecting and sharing stories of shift workers all around Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. There's always two elements to our stories. So we have some environmental portraits of our interviewees in their working environment, and also a bilingual story. So text, it's maybe 400 to 500 words written in English and in Cantonese. We are very proud of the fact that it's a bilingual storytelling platform. And the way that actually we write the Chinese, we've made a decision to write it in quite a colloquial way so as to capture the way that people speak and to make it more authentic. Not only is it just sharing of human stories, but there's an angle to our stories, which is to put a spotlight on people who are working behind the scenes all around us in the city. And we really hope to be able to use these stories to build empathy, to build bridges, and to foster connections between different communities in the city, and which is why we call it social impact storytelling.
Do you get comparisons to Humans of New York a lot?
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of people, that does come to mind, which is obviously a very successful platform. But we do kind of distinguish ourselves a little bit in that we do have a much narrower angle, and kind of our mission maybe is slightly more focused as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic project, and I'm a fan myself.
Yeah.
Yes, and I would add to it that so when we tell these stories, it's not only about telling nice stories, it's also really to invite people to act. Social impact implies, in my mind at least, an activity. And so we really invite our audience to look around, be a little bit curious, maybe sometimes get out of one's comfort zone, and to realize that we are surrounded by people day in, day out, and many of them are there to make our lives comfortable. So it's really a call to action in the broad sense. And then our focus is really on trying to use this call to action to promote social inclusion and diversity, which aligns with our social impact mission. And then finally, as we started Hong Kong Shifts, we have increasingly been working and collaborating with NGOs and social enterprises that are there on the ground, trying to have a social impact, promoting very concretely social inclusion and diversity. And we are hoping to help them and give them the visibility they deserve by telling their stories and using our platform to do so.
In terms of actions, have people who see your stories and read these people's stories, have they come up to you and told you about how they have looked around and been like, oh, I've noticed someone for the first time, have you had this feedback?
Yes, absolutely. We actually get quite a lot of these comments on our social media platform, or even in person when people see us. A lot of people say that they've been brave to take the first step to engage with people that are in their community. So, for example, they'd be more willing to have a chat with the taxi driver or say hello to the security guard, and also just to be generally a bit more open to making these small interactions with people all around us. So that's been really nice to hear when we get those messages.
Yeah, and also we meet up with our audience through events or workshops or the initiatives. There's always a part where we try to get the audience involved in actual storytelling activities or in activities that are really aimed at facilitating contacts and relationships between the people that participate in these events. So that's really at the heart of what we are trying to do. We are trying also, when we think about our social media presence, to become more participatory, if that's the word, where we would work closer with our audience to source some of the stories and work with them to create and share these stories, as opposed to just us going around and telling these stories. So that's also with the aim of getting our audience more directly involved, because it's by doing that you will get to a result rather than being more passively listening to these stories, even though that's the first step.
Yeah. And so for you, when did your first step come? And how did it arise? Where did Hong Kong Shifts come from?
Maxime, he wanted to kind of engage with the security guard that he's passed by for like 5 years, and not with the language barrier, he wasn't able to kind of speak with her. And he had this strong idea to kind of capture her in her work environment with these portraits. And then,
but I think you came then with the suggestion of interviewing
the story.
Yes, Mei Feng to get her story, and that's how we decided to do it the way we did. And so that's how the project started.
I think we came to realize, I grew up in Hong Kong, and Maxime's been living in Hong Kong for more than a decade as well, that we're often interacting with people or living in very confined bubbles all around us.
Well, yes, more generally, when I arrived to Hong Kong, I still remember vividly walking in Central and on a Sunday and seeing many women sitting on the ground on the alleys, and that was really puzzling to me. And it took me a while to realize that these were migrant domestic workers that were there to make make Hong Kongers and the expat communities, to make it possible for them to have their jobs, to live, to go to work while somebody is taking care of the household. And then gradually we realized that, and it's maybe not specific to Hong Kong, but I think it's maybe more visible. There are loads of people that walk around us, and that are there to help us and make our lives easier, going from, as I said, the migrant domestic workers to the security guard to the people that transport all of us. So I think we had this realization early on, but it took us a while to transform that into the visual storytelling project that Hong Kong Shifts is today. Also, we made the conscious decision of using photography as opposed to video. We live in a very fast-paced environment in Hong Kong, and we thought that having 1, 2, or 3 still pictures, hopefully, if the pictures are good, increases the chances that they might stick with the people seeing it, and hopefully the story sticks with the picture. So that's a very conscious decision, and yes, it's a question that people are asking us often. Oh, why don't you guys do video? But so far we have managed to to stick to our guns and use photography. Also, it's a lot easier to take pictures than video, to be fair.
Yeah. And how does the division of labour work? Who does what?
I'm usually the one who's approaching the interviewees, so I will make an initial contact with them, and then I'll start a conversation, very casual chat. So I'll do the interview if they're willing to, and then I'm the one who writes up the stories. And Maxime is our resident photographer. So he takes all of these beautiful portraits of people on shifts, essentially. Yeah.
And have you always been interested in photography?
I've always enjoyed photography, but as a hobby. And I'm not portraying myself as being a good photographer. I think I have the luxury of having access to these people because Cynthia has already warmed them up. I mean, I think if
Cynthia
I were
does all the hard work.
Yeah, well, if I were to come, and there's something that some photographers in the city have told me, said, we're very envious of the access you have to these people, because if I was to approach a stranger, can I get your portrait? It's you wouldn't get the same result, and you would also not get the same openness.
Yeah.
And that's literally something I see. The pictures, when I look back at the pictures I took of an interview, the first few pictures and the last pictures, it's the same person, but it's a total different image, just because we have this very small connection.
Yeah.
Which makes the whole difference.
I think also it's worth mentioning that one of our key values is authenticity, but also dignity. So we really want to capture and portray these people in a very dignified manner so that they feel proud of what they do and what they stand for.
I think that rings through the stories and the images that you have. I think there's definitely, you can sense this pride that these people have in their work, and rightly so.
Well, you also see as we are actually conducting the interview, and usually we don't have a lot of time,
right?
Because all of the people we're featuring are shift workers that are busy on their shift. So we have like 10 minutes to do the interviews, take the pics, and then we just leave to write the story. But you can see that as the interview goes, and the people are gradually opening up, and even my work as a photographer becomes easier because people get more comfortable, and yes, and so once we have published the interview, we do go back to meet with the people to share their stories, share their pictures, and you can see that most of the time they are very proud of seeing their story being shared and having a picture, because for many of our interviewees it's the first time that they
have their portraits
taken.
Like, can you give some examples of the jobs that these people do? Because I think, like you mentioned, they're often almost invisible to most Hong Kongers.
Yes, absolutely. One example would be, which was a really fantastic experience for us, was when we interviewed the seafarers and we got on a cargo ship. And, in Hong Kong, we're surrounded by water. We often see these huge container ships, but probably don't think about them at all, or what's in them, how it works. And so we got on this cargo ship and we met 23 of the crew members there, and this was during the height of COVID.
How did you manage?
That took a little bit of convincing, because obviously they were very strict with all the COVID requirements and stuff, but so we managed to get on this amazing ship, and these seafarers, they had not left the container ship for 9 months.
Wow.
They had not stepped foot outside, and they are so integral to everything that we use and consume and buy in Hong Kong, well, around the world really, but nobody really understands what they do. So that's just one example
there
of
are
a
examples
profession
that are much closer to our daily lives, like the street cleaners, the security guards. Talking about street cleaners, I learned a lot about how they go about their days. I hadn't realized before seeing them literally that the same team would be looking after the same streets in a neighborhood, that they had a very specific route, and also places where they have their breaks. I mean, it sounds all obvious, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it, but I have to admit, for me, for a long time, a street cleaner was a street cleaner. I didn't pay a lot of attention. And it's a lot about just opening up your eyes and just looking around, which makes your experience a lot more interesting generally. And
we also discovered professions that we didn't even know existed in the first place. Like we came across this lovely old man in Taihang, has a little hole in the wall shop, and his main job, which is what he's been doing for half a decade, is upholstering taxi seats, right? And that's a whole
industry
career.
I never knew I needed, but of course I do.
Exactly. And he's probably like the one remaining person doing that on Hong Kong Island. So.
I think another big part, which is maybe less obvious, clearly if you Google Hong Kong shifts, you will see a lot of stories of people working in the community on our streets. But also in our work environments, there are many people working behind the scenes, which often don't make the spotlights, and which I think would deserve more recognition within a corporate environment. And so that's why we are also actively working, collaborating with organizations, corporations, clubs, to work with them on these themes, because also simply because from a business perspective, giving everyone the recognition they deserve just allows the organization to function better, but also it's just the right thing to do.
As we spoke, the woman who cleans the co-working space in which Hong Kong Free Press is based, herself a contract worker, set to work restoring the office to the state in which we encounter it when we arrive in the morning. Her presence was a timely reminder of the workers who often go ignored, but, as Hong Kong Shifts hopes to highlight, keep the city going.
Also, we're not, I mean, obviously not preaching to have conversations with everyone.
No, right.
And we do approach people that are not interested to speak, and that's absolutely fine.
Of course.
Again, it's not about an individual story or trying to, it's just about paying attention and having this openness of having that opportunity to have a casual chat if the opportunity arises. And the message is sometimes you just need to create that opportunity or see that opportunity.
Yeah.
There are opportunities everywhere all the time. Sometimes we're busy, we cannot act on all the opportunities, but it just requires a bit of curiosity.
And generally, though, are people quite willing to kind of stop and have a chat?
Generally, yes. Actually, surprisingly, a lot of people are quite happy to take a little break from their work and just to have someone be curious about what they're doing. There are, of course, others that are just way too busy to even stop and have any sort of break. But I think it does take a bit of a gradual approach to kind of get them to warm up and to understand, you know, what we're there for, that we don't actually want anything special from them. It's really, we just want to hear their story. So
well, your success rate has improved over time as well, as you've learned how to do it as well.
This is correct. It does take some practice.
And I think if we were to approach the people we feature by saying, "Hi, can we interview you?" It wouldn't work.
Yeah, right. So how do you approach people?
That's a trade secret.
No, I'm happy to share. There's no rocket science to it, actually. It's really just approaching someone with a smile. Now it's easier without the mask.
Yeah, right.
And showing like respect and curiosity. And I usually just ask a few questions initially, easy questions. Oh, what are you doing? Have you been here for many years? And to see how they respond. And then gradually I'll just continue the conversation as I would be if I were meeting a new friend. So it's a very organic approach.
Yeah, it's always interesting to be explaining that to a journalist. Yes, who does it much better than we do.
Exactly.
I'm sure we could learn a thing or two.
Yeah, so it's a very organic approach, and then we try and also keep the interview quite fun as well, like a fun experience. Maxime cracks some jokes, and then he takes the portraits and we show them the pictures, and it just becomes like quite an interactive, like fun experience for them as well. And I think that's really important.
And most of them are Hong Kong Cantonese speakers.
We would say like currently the majority of shift workers are Cantonese. We do have also a percentage of people that are not Cantonese speakers, in which case I would do the interviews in English or Mandarin as well once. So
how's your Cantonese, Max?
Fluent. No.
No, it's interesting you asked that question, because actually one thing that we haven't featured any
Caucasian
shift workers.
Yeah.
And it's not on purpose. But so we are conscious to try and keep it diverse, so as to reflect the Hong Kong population, and that is something we need to be conscious of. It's a very organic process, but I think there's a perception sometimes that we do feature a lot of people that are quite old, and we wouldn't want to portray it or send a signal that shift workers only involves
the elderly population.
Right. Many of the people featured on Hong Kong Shifts work low-paying jobs in a city where wealth inequality is a major issue, and which has only been exacerbated by COVID-19. According to a report released by Oxfam Hong Kong in October 2022, the average monthly income of Hong Kong's poorest households fell by 22.9% to 2,700 Hong Kong dollars from 2019 to 2022. That's roughly equivalent to $350 per month. In the same period, the average income of the richest households rose by 6.3% to 127,600 Hong Kong dollars, or about $16,250 per month. Many of the people you're speaking to, they work these low-income jobs. Is this ever something that you address?
I think we don't try and make that kind of an essential part of the interview, but there have been definitely quite a few occasions where we've spoken to, especially the street cleaners or the cardboard collecting grannies, where they have kind of expressed that, it is tough, this is how much we earn. However, kind of what really surprised us in that experience, and this was kind of during the height of COVID, where they were obviously the most exposed to risks of getting ill and not getting proper care. They said to us that actually, this is our wage. It's fine. It's not great, but what we kind of really do miss is kind of connecting with people in our community, or people acknowledging us or giving us the recognition that we are working hard and we're here to serve the community. So and
so I think that's something I found very surprising, and that's also something that gives us more confidence to stress the importance of giving people the recognition they deserve, not because we say it, because they say it. And that's actually the key thing and consistent thing we hear from the people that we are interviewing. I still remember the street cleaner on Hollywood Road that told us, yes, I don't make much. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, I need more sanitary protection. But what I need most is people to acknowledge me, or even an eye contact. And that was really the moment I realized it is worth doing, and it's something really simple, but that makes a big difference. And when you think about it, and again, that's from my personal experience, we all need recognition from our friends, from work, whether it's recognition from our clients, from our colleagues, just a basic human need, which is not fulfilled for many shift workers, because we fail to realize that their customers are all of us. Our goal is to try and keep a relationship with the people that we are approaching. We don't want to go there, get the stories and forget about them. So we are always inviting them to the community events we organize. We go back to them to share their stories, and if there are opportunities to get them involved, we will do so.
Yeah, and also one more thing, which is kind of a gift from this project, is that every time we're in a neighborhood in Hong Kong, we're kind of almost bound to know someone working there, and it's really nice to kind of go back and have a chat with them, check in. So yeah, that I find really special.
And has it taken you to kind of places you would never have gone to otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say most places I probably wouldn't have thought to venture to myself, like if you don't have a particular purpose to go there. But I think it's been the best thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, as a team working on the project, that's one of the aspects we love. We just literally pick a neighborhood we've never been, and we just walk around and we see what happens.
Yeah.
And I would invite everyone to try it out. It's a
really
fun way of discovering Hong Kong, and Hong Kong has so much to offer. I've been here close to 14 years, and this project has allowed me to discover so many things I had no idea even existed, which shows you I was clearly living in a bubble.
Yeah.
But it's just a fun thing to do, and it's so diversified. Yeah.
And you always get surprises as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just like go with an open mind and see who you see and what you find.
And do you think, because obviously you grew up here and you did not, do you think that brings different perspectives to the project?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my perspective, which I'll share, is that, well, even though I grew up here, I did grow up in a very much of a bubble. And so kind of being able to use Cantonese, which is a language that I only started kind of picking up again properly since I moved back here 5 years ago, like using that to connect with people in our community and to kind of be able to engage with them and to make them laugh, or sometimes, so that for me is like really special for me to get to know my home, and also just to learn so much more about what's out there. It's just made my experience a lot richer. The project really has transformed me personally, so it's a very kind of important project for me personally. It's encouraged me to get totally outside of my comfort zone of just engaging with strangers, and kind of trying to build that connection very quickly, and so yeah, for me that's a huge learning experience, because now I kind of feel like I'm a lot more open with kind of talking to anyone, and it's brought me so much because I've just made so many amazing new connections just by taking that one step to engage. How about you?
I have rediscovered my city and its people. I have made tons of new friends, and I think it generally has improved or increased my level of happiness, simply because, and I'm convinced that by engaging with people around us, it just benefits everyone. Hopefully the project also helps people realize that yes, people come from different social economic backgrounds, but at the core we all have the same basic needs, and so by highlighting and that's a feedback we got a lot from our recent exhibition. People say that they get that from the stories, that at the end of the day the people are more similar than what they think, and once you realize that, it becomes easier to build connections because you share a lot in common. I've also realized how storytelling can be empowering, and that's something we didn't discuss, but that's really our focus now, using storytelling as a tool to empower the person sourcing the story, and that's something that we both experience, but also the person whose story is being told.
The project has also taught me that when you think of storytelling, it doesn't necessarily have to be like dramatized or sensationalized, or like, this big glamorous thing. There are a lot of really moving and powerful stories just literally 5 feet away from us, like all of us. And I think that's a message that we also really want to share.
Speaking from a journalist perspective, it's super interesting to see, because we're always taught to kind of find, someone who's got a real story to tell, right? And actually everybody has. And I think there's incredible importance in realizing that literally everybody has value and their story is worth hearing.
Yeah, it's surprising actually, because when we do the interview, it's often in Cantonese. I don't get to hear the story, but when I read it, I mean, every single time I enjoy reading it, and there's something I didn't know, or something that's witty. And we are not curating any stories. All the people that we are featuring are the people we approach and that said yes. So it hasn't happened yet where we start interviewing a person and then we see, this is not very interesting.
You're not looking for like a good case, which is
absolutely
quite often
not.
what we're
Which
taught to do.
Which is, it's something that we didn't expect either. And so that's why, again, as we move forward, we increasingly want to work with us and give others an opportunity to practice storytelling as an empowerment tool.
Do you have any background in storytelling, either of you?
None at all. None whatsoever.
You do now. You've acquired one now.
I mean, I love to read stories. Yeah. That was kind of my interest, but yeah.
Well, storytelling is
it's broad
term. Everybody does storytelling. Are we doing storytelling? I don't know. I mean,
you're providing a platform for storytelling.
Well, yes. I mean, we do our thing, and it doesn't really matter how it's called, as long as it brings value to us and hopefully to the audience. And I think it took me a while to be comfortable with the idea that, yes, I'm standing up for the project and I'm proud of it. And I think it does have an impact. It's not life-changing for sure, but I do think that the message and these stories are important and that it's worth spending efforts and sometimes it's not always easy, but it's really worth it, and I'm very happy to be here with you today to discuss it.
That's it for this week's episode of Yumcha, in conversation with co-founders of social impact storytelling platform Hong Kong Shifts. To see their work and the shift workers they have profiled, visit hongkongshifts.com or search for Hong Kong Shifts on social media. You've been listening to Yumcha, a news podcast from Hong Kong Free Press. Written, produced and edited by me, Mercedes Hutton. HKFP is a member of the Trust Project. Find out all about our journalistic standards by visiting hongkongfp.com/ethics. And for more informative and impartial coverage, and to learn how to support our journalist-led newsroom, visit hongkongfp.com.